I have a fun book haul to share today, or at least I think a fun book haul, and at least for me, it's a pretty small one, like a nice, cute, manageable book haul. And the nice thing about this is that once I share this, it's going to have me up to date with all of the books that I've purchased so far this year. The downside of it is that I am starting a new reading challenge, and I'm gonna have to be cautious of any of the book purchases I buy from this point on in the year, but that will come up when it does, which probably won't be until next month. For now, let me go ahead and share with you about these books. I am really excited to talk about all of them per usual. The first book that I have is The Republic of Memory. This is a book that I have heard about on and off, I feel like, since it was published, but only became really interested in it when I started learning about generation ships in science fiction, which are ships that in theory you've put a whole bunch of people on because they've all had to evacuate Earth or a planet or something like that, and that these people are going to be on these ships for generations, for a very long period of time before they ever make it to wherever it is that they're going. And it explores all the ideas that might come up with that, or at least this book does. They are on a ship called the Safina, and it is about halfway to the destination where everybody has gotten on this. They have a 400-year voyage. Most of the people are in cryostasis. There's a crew that is awake and probably on a rotating shift of being awake that is helping to manage the ship. And then things start to break down and there starts to be rolling blackouts and people start to become discontent. And it's exploring the idea of how do you keep a generation ship going when following generations may not care as much about the project as the original generation did, and all those kinds of things. It's a really interesting idea. I'm really looking forward to this book. It has on the back the quote, "Don't wait for the revolution, it takes place every day," which I think is a really interesting idea. It's definitely going to be political sci-fi, which I'm not sure if I like. I know that I don't tend to like political fantasy. We'll see if I feel differently about it when it comes to science fiction. And I'm sorry, there is going to be clanking of dishes like we're in a restaurant in the back of this whole video because dinner's being made, but it's not being made by me. So I'm excited about that. We're just gonna have to deal with it. It happens every now and then in my videos. Anyway, this book is written by Mahmud El-Said. He's a British Egyptian science fiction fantasy writer, and he works in a genre that he calls Arab futurism, which is something that I don't think I've read yet, and I really like the idea of that. And I'm definitely planning on looking up some more authors who feel like they're working and writing in the same genre. But yeah, Generation Ship, a book all about that. So this might be one that you might want to try if you've read Children of Time or any sort of science fiction like that, where people are trapped on a ship for a very long time, like 400 years, and want to know how that's going to work out. I want to know how that's going to work out, or at least how somebody else thinks that's going to work out, and I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. The next book I have is hitting all the nerdy feels inside me, and that is A Swim in a Pond in the Rain by George Saunders. Now, I don't think I've ever heard of George Saunders before until he came up, what was it, on the New York Times, like top 100 or something like that, and then people were kind of upset because he was on there like 4 or 5 times, and I don't know, whatever. Anyway, that's where I feel like I first heard his name, but I saw this book and read the premise, and then I saw it was by him, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. I want to check it out. So this is basically almost like an academic text in some ways is what it feels like. So George Saunders, he's been teaching for 20 years at Syracuse University. And in this book, he has taken some of the short stories that he has taught to his students. And he's also included some of the things that he has learned and his students have learned and that he has taught his students about how novels work and why they work for us when they don't work for us, and just how fiction works altogether, both to make people better writers as well as better readers, and to understand like what we're doing and what is happening to us when we are reading fiction. And I really like reading books that are about like studying literature and understanding literature and how to understand better what we're reading, and this sounds like a whole bunch of that. So I am super excited. The one thing that I didn't realize about this book is that not only does he talk about the short stories that he taught in his class, but in this book are also included the short stories, which I think is really nice. So it's almost like a mini like literature text, like I said. And I think that's actually how I'm going to treat it. So I know a lot of other people create like personal curriculums. To me, this is like buying a personal curriculum in a book. Like all the work is already done for you. What you need to study and learn from it is already done. The short story is in here, all that kind of jazz. And I really like the way it has it all laid out. It's very clear like what you're about to step into. I'm trying to find an example to show you. Okay, so for example, one of the stories you'll be studying is The Singers by Ivan Turgenev. And so it starts with the short story in there, and then you get a couple of, I don't know if it would be essays or like readings, thoughts, but the subtitle of this book is In Which Four Russians Give a Masterclass on Writing, Reading, and Life. And so it talks about the Russian short stories that he teaches to his class, which I really like. I took a Russian literature class in college. It was one of my favorite classes. We started out the class with a short story, and then we read War and Peace as our only other book, and it was fabulous. So I'm looking forward to basically having a little Russian lit in a book class reading situation going on. All right, the next book is called Almond. I have never heard of this book, but it attracted my eye, I'm not going to lie, partially because it's little cute size. I mean, who doesn't like a cute book? This is a normal trade paperback size, and this is this little size. And this is being put out by a publisher, and they're called Nomad Editions. And I've been seeing more and more books in these Nomad Editions, which I'm hoping that this is what is replacing mass market paperbacks. Because one, this is a cuter size and it feels nicer in the hands, and they have the right idea of this is not an excuse to take the longest book ever written and make it short. Like that's just gonna create like a huge thick tome that nobody wants to read. Anyway, let me tell you about the book Almond and why I want to read this, besides the aesthetics, which I will go back and talk some more about that. But first off, let me tell you what this book is about. Like I was saying, it is about Yoon Jae, who is born with a brain condition that basically prevents him from feeling emotions like fear and anger. And it's also led to him really struggling to make any friends in school. He lives with his mother and his grandmother. They provide a safe, content life for him. But then there's a sudden, tragic, and violent accident that happens, and he's finding himself alone in the world. And then one day, he makes a friend at school, and as he gets to know this other young boy, he starts to experience a change. And as the story goes on, that young boy's life somehow becomes at risk, and our main protagonist, Yoon Jae, suddenly finds himself awakening to possibly being a hero that he never thought he could be. This sounds like it's going to be a heartbreaking, charming, beautiful, almost coming of age story in a lot of ways, with hopefully some really good representation. And I can't wait. I think it's going to be a really lovely story. And I don't know, I was just really drawn to the idea of this story. Now let's go back to how I was also drawn to this book. One has this little flap that comes off, and then the book cover itself, I love the little like silhouette of the face here, and then this is also its own little paper cover that comes off. I feel like this is like a magic trick of books within books, and then you get like this little post-it note thing or something that's there. So it's just a really nice book and a nice size. And I mean, I'm not going to collect the books that they publish in this edition unless they're books that I want to read, but there is one other book that I own that's also in the same size, the Tatami Galaxy. So it's over there on my bookshelves. But if I like a trade paperback of that, I may be very tempted to get that whole series in this size because it comes in this size. I'm pretty sure that there's a specific name for this size book. So if I can find what the name of it is, I will put that on the screen. The final book that I have, can you believe that? We're almost done with this book haul already, is Bridge 108. And this is one that I think I got off of Pingo. I have been unhauling as many of my books as possible on Pingo and then using the credit to buy other books that I'm interested in that I can't trade locally or find at a local used bookstore. And so I check Pingo before I go and like buy and pay full price, because then it feels like I'm getting the book for free. So Bridge 108 was one of the books that I found. I was really happy about that because this came out, I believe, a few years ago. Oh, look. I also got a cute little sticker. Okay, it was published in 2020. So yeah, so 6 years ago. So highly unlikely that I would find this on a bookstore shelf. Anyway, Bridge 108, what is this about? This is about another young boy. I am a little worried that I have a couple of stories featuring very young protagonists, but I think it'll be okay. I usually just don't like books that are written from teenagers' perspectives. I don't know why. That doesn't work for me. Anyway, this book is set in the late 21st century. There's droughts, there's wildfires, everything's going on, and 12-year-old Caleb ends up getting separated from his mother and then basically kidnapped and trafficked. I don't recall how I heard about this book or why I thought I'd want to read a book about that, but it does sound really interesting, and it ended up on my TBR. I think it's a bit of climate fiction as well as a cross of talking about human trafficking and just the horrificness of that and how survivors and people overcome that. It's definitely following Caleb's story as he gets trafficked and how he survives that, and I believe how he is able to escape and that kind of thing. It's going to be interesting to read that as a fictional story and see how that whole thing goes. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of information in here related to the climate and climate change, as well as having to do with human trafficking, and so that will probably be very hard to read. It's also told through multiple voices, which I do like. It may have been the other thing that attracted me to this. I know that in general, I have been really enjoying books that I've been reading that are told from multiple POVs, especially if the other voices are telling us about the protagonist, like whether it's interviewing those people about the protagonist or it's just the story from other people's point of view, but they keep running into the protagonist. All of those things I have really found I enjoy in books. I don't know why, but it works for me. So that's it, my 4-book haul. Here they all are. There is definitely a blue theme that Almond seemed to miss out on, but I'm really looking forward to reading these 4 books. I'm hoping I'll be able to get them onto some sort of TBR or read them sometime in the near future, but I'm not worried about it. I like my books to sit on the shelves for a while and to have them come up randomly and surprise me as the thing that I'm going to read that week. So we'll see. Of these 4, which one do I most want to read? Probably The Republic of Memory or Almond. Well, or this woman is, see, I kind of like to start that little project too, but I'm also kind of sick of short stories. So probably one of the first 2 are, one of these 2 rather, Almond or The Republic of Memory, are probably one of the 2 that you're gonna see sooner than later, and the other 2, who knows when they will come up. Let me know which of these 4 books, if any, you would start by reading, and that's it for me today. Let me know if you've followed anything good or if you've read any of these books and you want to tell me or encourage me to read them sooner than later. Just don't include any spoilers, and I will talk to you next time.